Welcome, everyone. Today is July 14th, 2021, and we are very grateful to have with us Father Richard Antonucci, Abbot Emeritus of the Norbertine community here at Daylesford Abbey. Father Richard, thanks for being with us today.
My pleasure indeed.
And this conversation today was really sparked by my recent work helping out with Norbertine Vocation's team here at the Abbey, talking with Father Richard a little bit about his roles as a priest here. Well, not just here at the Abbey, but beyond the Abbey and his early life as a priest, talking about the Daylesford Priory, and he was telling me so many things. It was really cool. And I was like, well, this is going to be the heart of our podcast, because if we're highlighting vocations and we're talking about what it is to feel the call of the Lord towards a life of professed religious life, then it would be important to highlight the nitty-gritty of that and the different roles you might find yourself in. So, Father Richard, I don't know where you might want to start. You had initially commented on your early days as a priest, so I'll just let you take the ball and run with it.
Well, we could start with the latest initiative. The Abbot asked me in August to be part of our vocation team.
Mm-hmm.
And what I have done there is I have responded to certain emails, as you know,
Mm-hmm.
That various men have sent to us inquiring about the community. And I tend to be a hands-on guy. Let's do stuff and be responsive, that kind of thing. But that's only the latest of the many, many roles that I have had. I was thinking after you and I spoke, one of the mottos of the Norbertine community in Latin is ad omni opus bonum paratus, prepared for every good work.
Mm.
It's almost like the Marines, semper fi,
Right.
Semper paratus, always prepared. And looking back, over 55 years now as a Norbertine, never would I have imagined, that I would have been involved in so many things. When I joined the community, feel free to stop me, okay? When I joined the community in 1963, right out of high school, I had been thinking about being a priest all through, even late in grade school and all through high school. And I was going to say I made the mistake of putting that down on a card.
Mm.
Because right away, the certain priests came right at me. They met with me,
Sure.
And it was really nice. It was really, and one of them.
And you couldn't just click unsubscribe like
No,
you can now.
no, because I had 4 years of high school.
Right.
And one of them, Father George Fighter, who died way back in 1982 on October 5th, he was more than a mentor to me. He was an example. He was a friend. He was a confessor. And he stayed so supportive of me all throughout, my seminary years, and then when I was ordained. And I was very fortunate to have had that. I look back, what was that? The support of so many Norbertines and even so many lay people, my family, to be sure, my family. Although I don't know how enthused my dad was, about my joining. Because when I was a priest, a new priest, on Sundays I would go home for a nice Italian dinner after my masses. And Dad, he would be reading the paper in our living room, and we would be having a nice Manhattan, before dinner. And he was looking at the job wanted, and he would say to me, with your degrees, do you know what kind of money you could be making? And I got a little angry at him. I thought, that's not what I'm all about. But he's a product of the Depression. So
Right.
Clearly, even getting a job for him, was a big deal. Anyway, all I ever wanted to be and do, Andrew, was be a high school math teacher. And you know how they say, you make plans and God laughs?
Yes.
That's exactly what happened. And when I look back, I had wonderful education. My college out at St. Norbert College in Wisconsin, I had a terrific advisor, one of the former abbots, Abbot Jerry Tremmel,
Okay.
who was fresh off of getting his PhD in math from Purdue. and he was my personal advisor, and he mapped out all 4 years, and I took almost all of the math courses
Okay.
that the college offered. I graduated with about 50 plus credits in math, rather than just the 36. So when I went to graduate school, they put me in the mid-level.
That's
And
cool.
again, I didn't realize, but when I look back, I'm very grateful, that I had that kind of advice
Mhm.
and mentoring. And when I came here as an older seminarian, the Abbey was still trying to get on its feet, but it was a very exciting time with the liturgy, the changes from Vatican Council II.
Mhm.
This was now the late 60s, early 70s.
Mhm.
And we started a print shop.
Yeah, you mentioned that.
I never in my life thought I would be involved in a print shop. And Father Hubert Bedoin.
Was that here in the Abbey?
I'm sorry?
Was that here in the Abbey?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's where the liturgy office is.
Okay.
Yeah. And Dominic, Abbot Dominic,
Yeah.
and I were the three who ran it. And it was a commercial enterprise. We tried to make some money because we really needed it in those days to make the mortgage of the Abbey. But we also used it as an evangelical tool.
Sure.
To print various things, about the Gospels and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Then I thought, well, right after ordination, I got my master's degree even. I was able to do that all during seminary formation.
That's
my
great.
master's in math. I thought, oh, I'm going to go to South Philly, and for the rest of my life, I'm going to teach math. Well, the print shop was going strong, and the Abbey sort of had a lot of needs, and I don't know if I was asked or I thought, let me just stay here for a year. Well, the year developed into 5 years, so I eventually went to teach at Newman in 77 when I was 5 years ordained. And I thought that's all I would do. But in 1983, I was informed, we had just started a computer program.
Okay.
In the late 70s, early 80s.
At Newman?
At Newman.
Okay.
And it really took off. I mean, everybody was so excited about it. I was excited about it. We were even interviewed, I think I told you, on TV. We had a computer fair.
Oh, wow.
On the news.
Right.
Yeah, and...
so what kind of computers were they?
Well, in the beginning, they were Radio Shack TRS-80 Model 1s.
Okay.
Not too many people remember those.
No, I'm going to see if I can pull up a picture and put that on the video of the podcast.
That would be good.
Yeah.
All these different pieces, like a tape recorder as your external storage device.
Okay.
A tape recorder, cassette tapes.
So
But,
data was stored on the
Yeah,
cassettes. Okay,
yeah.
interesting.
And it was very easy to lose data,
Mm-hmm.
But what was it, 1983, I was informed by the community that the archdiocese asked me to go work for them in the school's office my title was director of planning, but also to sort of hold the hands of a computer education program for all the schools. And I did that for 4 years, and then I was called out here by Abbot Neitzel, our first abbot, and he said to me, we're going to have a principal change at Newman, and your name is on the top of the list. To which I immediately said, without thinking, take it off. Because I was very happy in my job, and I knew the school was having difficulties. My predecessor was removed, and there were a lot of discipline challenges, and I really didn't want to do that. But I did, and it was as difficult as I thought. It was. And I remember hearing as a young seminarian that every priest, every religious, at one time or another in her or his life is given an assignment that's really, really challenging.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, this is it.
Mm-hmm.
Dear God, let this be only one in my life. But I was 5 years as principal, and each year was better.
Right.
Each year got better. And then they asked me to go back at the archdiocese again,
Okay.
work in technology, which I did in the late 90s. And it was a totally different era at that point.
Right.
Because there was a lot more financial support for computers, governmental support, parish support, state support. And I loved doing that because I was involved in a lot of creating new projects, seeking funding, finding it, and I worked with some great people. They're all full-time teachers,
Mm-hmm.
and yet we started our work at 4 o'clock in the afternoon.
Okay.
And there were many nights where we would, people would bring cookies, we would get a Coke, and that would be our dinner.
Mm-hmm.
But we were excited about creating, a computer program for the whole archdiocese.
And there is an energy in such a creative endeavor like that that takes you beyond. I don't know if it's good, but it takes you beyond that need for like sleep and eating. But there's a crash that can come with that. But there's a high that you ride, and you're using this new hardware, software, whatever it is, and you're making it applicable and usable for people. Mm-hmm. And that is very exciting.
Oh yeah. And as I said, the people I worked with, they gave me energy.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, these were married people. They had a full-time teaching job, and they met once a month after school until 7, 8 o'clock at night.
Okay.
So anyway, that was my time, working with the archdiocese, and then we withdrew from Newman in 2000. And there were only 5 or 6 of us living there at the time, and we all came back here at the Abbey. And that's when I filled a lot of different roles here.
Okay.
I was involved in development. I'm still involved with development.
Mm-hmm.
And I was prior in the mid to late 2000s. I was elected abbot in 2009.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's nice being emeritus because I work in the library, I work in our archives, I work in the Vocation team. I go out on assignments for masses, and other sacramental ministry. Mm-hmm. And it's, like I said, it's nice, not too stressful.
Right.
So is that kind of what you were looking for?
Absolutely, yeah. And now you're technically retired?
Well, we don't use that term.
Okay.
Maybe we use that term in the sense that I don't have a full-time assignment.
Right.
Like pastor of a parish.
Okay.
Chaplain at a school.
Yeah. Because that's confusing sometimes when you look online at someone's bio and it says retired reverend, but then they're doing so many things and you're like, wait, this guy's retired?
Yeah.
But, no. Okay, thanks for clearing that up.
Well, as somebody said, as a priest, I don't know if every priest buys this, but I do.
Mm-hmm.
We work, in ministry until we drop.
Mm.
Until the Lord, as long as the Lord gives us good health.
Mm-hmm.
Because when I said yes to being ordained and being in relations, I didn't say, okay, until I'm 75 or 65.
Right.
None of us said that.
Yeah. And I guess, and on our baptism, right, we're baptized priest, prophet, king.
That's right.
That doesn't have an expiration to
That's
it, really.
Correct.
Not an
That's
earthly
right.
one, at least,
Yeah.
right? So, well, thanks for sharing that and going into that a little bit.
Sure.
Now, you had mentioned in our conversation the other day about the Daylesford Priory and the sense of communio that you experienced there. Would you care to comment on that a bit?
Yeah, I those 5 years in the 70s that I stayed here, I was in my late 20s, early 30s, and being involved and really trying to make this place work on so many levels. I didn't realize it at the time, but when anyone does something like that, it becomes part of you.
Mm.
So, for example, when I went to teach full-time at Newman, I found myself coming back here a lot, especially during Holy Week, for the Triduum, and that's wonderful.
Because you were living there at the time
I
as
was
well?
living in the Priory in Philadelphia, in South Philly.
Mm-hmm.
And even those first few years, I came out here and helped out in the print shop.
Okay.
Because that got in my blood, too.
Right, yeah. And there is something very special about this place, too, the Abbey, and more than just the building, the grounds, the energy here is very magnetic.
Oh, yeah. And even here, as I said about my teacher friends, when I see our associates, for example, or people like Stephen Ministers, we had a Zoom meeting yesterday. I can't tell you what energy hearing these people in their describing their ministry and what it does for them, what energy that gives me.
Right.
Yeah, and it's not just a witness. It's like, wow, I want to be part of that.
Yeah.
I want to support that. And again, I think we're very blessed here to have great.
So, if I could put you on the spot with this question, where does that come from within the Norbertine charism per se? This call to be at one with the laity too in your ministry.
Well, it comes from way back when St. Norbert founded the community. We are a hybrid between very active and very contemplative people.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we're not monks,
Mm-hmm.
and yet we're not fully active
Mhm.
like diocesan priests.
Mm-hmm.
And we're a hybrid, and our technical term, as you know, is we're canons.
Canons, right.
And when Norbert founded the community, he wanted to establish communal life under the rule of St. Augustine,
Mm-hmm.
of which our primary goal is the Latin word communio,
Mm-hmm.
but also reaching out and serving the people.
Okay.
See, so it was a
Mhm.
combo.
Right, right. It's very interesting. Thank you for that.
Sure.
Yeah. So then, how did you end up from the Priory coming here to the Abbey?
We left the school.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's right. That was
Yeah,
that
we left
leaving
the
of
school.
Newman, and you said there were like 5 or 6 of you there.
Yeah, that was a very sad time.
Yeah.
An emotionally sad time.
Mm-hmm.
But believe it or not, I'm still involved in the school.
Right, right.
I'm on the school board of Newman already because the schools have merged.
Okay.
We merged with our sister school.
Okay, very nice.
So again, it's in my blood. I can't take it out of it.
Yeah, yeah. And when you find yourself really falling in love with the work that you're doing, even when it's that labor of love where you're pulling out your hair at times, you know, and putting in obscenely late hours, then you know it's really hard to separate yourself from that. In terms of the different uses of technology that you've seen over the years, how would you comment on that use of technology for the sake of spreading gospel? Where do you see those two worlds coming together?
Well, I mean, just what you're doing, you know, in terms of using social media, using this format, you know, a podcast.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely, it makes it easier for us, you know, to reach people.
Right.
You know, in the past, the typical format was people have to literally come here.
Yeah.
See, now that's not the case. That
Mhm.
might be one of the silver linings in this COVID experience. You know, this
Yeah.
remote connection.
And the podcast allows for this, a long form conversation.
Yeah.
It's not just a 2-minute segment with the expert who comes on the mainstream news and tells you the opinion that you're going to hear on every other network, right? It's a very nuanced thing. You can really like get into topics. You can really get a person's expanded perspective on something. And when we live in like kind of like a clip culture where everything's like a 20-second clip or something
That's
like
right.
that online, people are craving something more substantial.
Yeah.
And it's hard, like you just said, for them to, for COVID or for whatever other reasons might exist, physically get to a place
Right.
like we've done here in the past.
Right.
So this is a pretty special thing, this technology we have.
What personally enriches me, I'll give you one specific example. For the past, I'm going to say 3-4 years, a very good friend, member of the Abbey, Bill Claypool, is a Notre Dame grad. And he recommended to me, he says, you know, Notre Dame has a daily meditation on the gospel of the day. I would advise anybody, you know, to receive that. It's a very short clip.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, the advantage is it's not written only by priests.
Mm.
It's written by all the different representatives of the Notre Dame community.
Okay.
Alumni,
Mm-hmm.
staff, even seminarians.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and the other thing is, they describe a personal application of that gospel of the day, which I think is a real strength.
Yeah.
Yeah, a personal application. So, for example, that's how computers and technology can really help the spread of the gospel
Right.
by your sharing your faith with me.
Mm-hmm.
See,
Mm-hmm.
not just the ordained people.
Right. Right. Yeah, that's pretty neat. How I guess you could call it the democratization of technology
Mm-hmm.
has allowed for that sharing of voices, and it gets a little maybe too loud at times, or
Yeah,
kind
right.
of a little manic. But just the concept in itself is very unique. Is very I would say almost like implicit within our faith, where it's this thing that needs to be shared. Right? We can't just keep it to ourselves.
That's right.
The technology, like, what good is it if I just have this really cool computer that's not connected to the internet? Yeah, I can do cool things on that computer, but whether I'm playing a game or creating a program or a movie or something, ultimately it's in being able to collaborate and share that with people, or play with people, or get reviews of a product I've created or something like that. Right? It's about the connectivity. So I think it was with Father Andrew Ciferni, we were talking about like Buckminster Fuller and his take on religion and the Holy Spirit, and he saw, I think, the Holy Spirit or electricity as like a representation of the Holy Spirit, right? So sometimes that comes to mind when I'm working with technology. But yeah, intrinsically, it's this connectivity that that's what our faith is about, right? That's the word religion means to rebind, to reconnect, right? So when I find myself working with technology at times, and you hit a snag, and there's a glitch or an error, and there's a short circuit, and you find yourself short circuiting, it's like, all right, what's the spiritual lesson in this, right? Like there is something of value to be found there.
And here's the other thing. I am very hopeful for the future. You hear a lot of people talk technology down, like social media down. Now we're glued to our smartphones and all that, and to an extent, I think that's true.
Right.
But it's not to deny the positive effect, that has. And I'm old enough to remember. I mean, I had no idea, when I was in college until my senior year. This is the early 60s, mid 60s. I had no idea what a computer was, or I had heard about it, the ENIAC, here in the 40s in Philadelphia. But I had no idea like that a machine like that would be sitting in front of you one day.
Right.
And the potential that it opened up. The new look at the new industry and industries. Go keep taking that out further. Literally today, we don't know what's going to happen.
Right.
And to me, that represents a lot of potential for enhancing the spread of the gospel of the Lord.
Yeah, and it's teaching us too about these rather heavy concepts in terms of like transcendence, right? Like we're transcending just this conversation right now of two guys in a room. It's going out to the world. Our vibrations from the air passing through our vocal cords is in some way being converted into the binary or ones and zeros, which then through the cables passes and it's like, whoa, what is really happening here? If anything, we're finding out more about our humanity, what it is to be human, what it is to connect, right? What it is to not connect at times, even like you just mentioned, how the technology can be misused or abused in some cases, for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, the experts, right? They've done studies that have shown the addictive potential of technologies, but I mean, you could probably extend that in a lot of different aspects of life where one can take something too far.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I'm just very hopeful, and I'm reading a book now about radical decency. I think I mentioned it to you, and I'm not far into it at all. And the author is talking about the ill effects of our algorithmic world. And he uses, maybe I shouldn't use this example, but he mentions Amazon in particular, and how their efficiency in getting packages to us is so demanding on their employees.
Yes.
I had no idea.
Yes, I've been reading and watching a lot of stuff about this.
Now, there's a good in that, their efficiency, but I think we got to put a layer of some of what he called the 7 virtues of radical decency.
Right.
Basically human stuff.
Right.
And I think that'll happen. I think that will happen.
Yeah, and it's like things are becoming so seamless. They're becoming so frictionless, where all it takes is the one button order, right? The one click order.
Yeah.
And you can have it shipped to your home as quickly as that day.
It's amazing.
Right?
Yeah,
and I know there's been talk about delivery by drone and all that stuff, and maybe that's helpful to lessen the tensions put on workers to meet those demands. But I've heard that even making simple things like not choosing same-day delivery might lessen that tension that's being put on employees by algorithms. Yeah, I was even seeing a piece that was saying that employees, I don't know if it's currently or very soon in the future, might be fired by algorithm, because the algorithm will be like, you didn't, meet your standards for the day. We're no longer needing your services.
Evidently, they do have penalties. If the people if they take more time than the algorithm predicts.
Right.
Because it knows the distance and it knows the speed with which they went and grabbed the item in the past.
Right. Yeah.
So I think that definitely needs attention.
Yeah, and it's like in that by like negation we learn about our humanity, kind of, right? It's like, well, we're not really that. We can't be so put into a box that every action is done the same time every time, and that person has needs that vary on the person in the day.
But it's not to deny the value of an algorithmic world.
Right.
You see,
Right.
it's just like medicine. I look at medicine could be used.
Mm-hmm.
Thank God it's used mainly for the good,
Mm-hmm.
and I've been the beneficiary of that. In my life,
Mm-hmm.
surgeries and stuff. It could also be used, for the detriment, for the harm
Right.
of people.
Right.
So that's where I think, religion, I think, comes in, or a system of values, especially
Right.
one that's based on the sacredness of life, respect life,
Mm-hmm.
and the engendering of improvement of life.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of the reasons I was very interested in the education of young men at
Mm-hmm.
Newman, because I'm old enough now that some of them went on to develop very successful careers, and they involved me in their lives,
Mm-hmm.
with weddings and baptisms,
Sure.
funerals of their parents,
Right.
and then, that really makes me feel blessed,
Mm-hmm.
and I was very, very interested in being a part of that with
Mm-hmm.
them. And some of them are very generous in attributing to me, I'm sure, some of the things that I didn't do. But it's like the further away from the event we get, the more dramatic it becomes. So anyway.
Well, I guess you never know the impact you have, right?
Yeah, that's
like
true.
the priest you had mentioned earlier, who had a very early impact
Yeah.
on you. I don't know if that's something that he was maybe fully aware of, but
It's going to be 40 years in 2022. 40
Mm-hmm.
years that he's gone, and I'm older than he was when he died. And people often ask me, "Oh, what was it about the Norbertines that attracted you?"
Mm-hmm.
As I said, I was thinking in 7th and 8th grade. My 12, 13, 14-year-old mind. And to me, I had one image, as most of us did in those days, of a priest. That was
Right.
my parish priest. And they were wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
Wonderful. But the image was one of loftiness,
Mm-hmm.
And when I got to Newman, I really saw a human aspect. I saw them kid around with each other.
Mm-hmm.
And that, I remember, that shocked me.
Right.
Yeah, but it also attracted me.
Mm-hmm.
It also attracted me. And I went on to learn, this is part of living together.
Yeah.
Which is not always honky-dory,
Sure. Sure, I have a family too.
Especially when you get a bunch of guys who are very independent-minded.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But it does work, and it has worked, and it has worked for me, and I'm happy to say, for me, it's working well here at Daylesford Abbey.
Yeah, and when people have a common focus, in this case, when Christ is the common focus, right? It's kind of like metal sharpens metal. If everyone is being called to be their best selves, which is, hard to do every day, but, it's still something we can strive for and try to grow towards, then, that encourages that common growth. And that certainly helps you in your endeavors, especially when, you're being kind of called to try your hand at all different responsibilities in different areas, and like you said before with the principal position, something you really were feeling challenged by. So that's and that's going to be really helpful to know that you're within a community that's also in their own individual lives, facing these challenges, but at the same time too, keeping their focus in a direction that's going to call them to.
And moving more now towards the vocational piece.
Mm-hmm.
Again, this is something I never realized when I joined the community and right out of high school. I didn't appreciate the distinction between diocesan priests and community priests.
Okay.
So, for example, we as canons regular, the heart of our day.
Mm-hmm.
Here in the Abbey is the praying of the Divine Office in common.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, when I first joined in '63, everything was in Latin.
Mm.
And I remember one of my classmates asking our novice master, we were in the chapel 7 times a day.
Wow.
And in classes in between and work periods in the fields.
Okay.
We were 6 South Philly boys,
Uh-huh.
working, weeding strawberries and
Right,
stuff like
right.
that. But I remember my one classmate saying to our novice master, "Father, I'm sorry, but I don't understand the Latin." He said, "How do I know what I'm praying?"
Mm-hmm.
And I'll never forget this. Our novice master said, and this is way back in 1963, he said, "You don't have to understand it. Just the fact that you're there with your brothers, now, and you're all praying together, the prayer of the church, part of that being there is your prayer to God."
Right.
And, that came back to me a few years ago, about one of the values of community prayer.
Mm-hmm.
And we extend that not only with prayer, but we extend it to recreation.
Mm-hmm.
Every day we sit down, after evening prayer at 5:00, and we just talk about whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm happy to say there's a lot of laughter.
That's good, yeah.
And with the little bantering that goes back and forth. Then we also extend that to our common table.
Okay.
Lunch and dinner in particular,
Right.
And the conversation continues. So, I think what in the surveys I have seen, and you heard me cite one at our last meeting, living in community is a real attraction to a lot of young men and young women, I assume, who are thinking about a vocation rather than working in a solitary, ministry. And that is something that we definitely stress.
Yeah.
We definitely stress. And we're challenged by it because a lot of time our activity, conflicts with our being together with our brothers. And so there's that virtue of balance.
Yeah, you guys are very busy. People in and out of the Abbey on their assignments and doing different things. Yeah. And if I can say as a layperson that working here, there is a lot of laughter, and it is fun too to be here. It's not just this very rote, serious workplace where everyone is feeling very solemn in the Abbey. No, it is a place of joy, and what is that quote? Is joy is the infallible presence of the sign of God, or sign of God's presence, or something along those lines.
Well, that's good.
Yeah, so I think that's very apparent here at the Abbey too.
Glad you noticed it.
Yeah, and and being the director of the Spirituality Center and welcoming guests that come from all over, they comment on that too. So it's nice to be affirmed that way as well. Yeah.
We're taken lately to giving nicknames to one another.
Oh yeah, you care to share your nickname?
Well, no.
Okay.
But I didn't. They didn't get on me yet. But we're on one of our younger guys.
Okay.
And it's hysterical.
Well, he's got to pay his dues, right?
He's got to pay his dues. I'll just say what the nickname is, and this probably won't mean anything to the vast majority of people. But to those of us who were born and raised, in an Italian-American culture, his nickname is Gagoots. Gagoots, and I just sent him an email yesterday, "Dear Gagoots."
That's great.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
Well, Father Richard, thank you so much for being with us today.
You're welcome indeed.
We've covered a lot of ground here in terms of the many roles that you've fielded in your time as a priest and as a Norbertine here, and the general spirit of the Abbey. And I know that something you mentioned too was that sense of healing that you find that people have commented on when they come here. So I don't know, would you want to comment on that maybe as we wrap up?
Sure. Yeah. I first of all, as a priest, I'm privileged as a priest. Period. And I always thought that I was ordained a priest not for me, but for you and for others. And we literally get people who knock on our door, well, pre-COVID anyway,
right,
and would ask to go to confession. And during those 5 years I was here after my ordination, and during my 21 years now, that continues. So I've experienced healing, sacramental healing in terms of confession, sacrament of reconciliation, healing through the sacrament of the anointing of the sick. A lot of my friends are getting older, and I offer to help by way of going and anointing them, praying with them and their loved ones who are there. And I see the great sense of it just recently. Someone that had surgery on Monday,
Mhm.
and he was so grateful that I even offered,
Yeah.
to present the sacrament of the sick. So then there's the healing that comes through just listening.
Mhm.
The Stephen ministry is I
Yeah.
keep pushing that because I love that ministry, and it's a ministry of listening
Mhm.
and therefore healing, listening to people who've experienced loss.
Mhm.
And I've seen it. I've seen it. It's not like, now I don't feel the loss anymore, but it's different.
Yeah.
It's different. It doesn't have the bite,
Mhm.
that it once had.
Mhm.
And I think you don't have to be a priest to do that. I know you don't have to be a
Right.
priest to do that. So, yeah, the healing that takes place here, healing and reconciling, is the catchphrase that we've been using.
Yeah.
Reconciling is bringing people together because of communio,
Right.
our belief in
Right.
communio.
And that's what Norbert was living within too, the time of blood feuds and bringing
Yeah.
people that were at each other's, throats together in
Yeah.
reconciliation that way.
And one of his titles is Minister of Peace and Concord,
Okay.
because he did that very thing.
Right. Right.
And typically what happened, Andrew, uh, at least I remember reading years ago, it would typically be like two noble people, noble
Okay.
men, typically, who were at odds with each other. And peasants lived around their castles.
Mm-hmm.
So when they fought each other, who do you think really suffered?
The peasants. Right.
And today, when people are not reconciled, those peripheral people also suffer.
Sure.
See?
Sure.
So I think there's definitely a need, and a value, great value in that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I wanted to add that in there too because it's something that we had discussed speaking about today, and we hadn't gotten to it yet, but I thought it very important to mention because I personally even found that same presence here of reconciliation to be very apparent at the Abbey. So we thank Father Richard for
You're
being with
welcome.
us today. It's been a
Thank
pleasure.
you.
Oh, absolutely, my pleasure. It's been great to talk with you, and I hope that all that I hope all of those that watch and listen to this podcast will in some way be inspired. So if you yourself would like to come and check out the Abbey, if it's been some time since you've been here, if you would like to come for your first time, by all means, reach out to us. If you're feeling the Lord's call towards a religious vocation with the Norbertines, you can visit daylesford.org/vocations, or you can send an email to vocations@daylesford.org.
Mm-hmm.
Father Richard, would you want to give your personal email here at the Abbey in case people want to reach out?
Sure. It's R.J. Antonucci, Antonucci, at Daylesford, Daylesford.org.
Thank you. So, in
Welcome.
case you'd like to reach out to Father Richard, there's your avenue for doing that. If you're interested in coming to the Abbey for a private retreat, it's in the middle of July right now. Things are quite hot, but they're very lush and green. We've been getting a fair amount of rain, so things are really quite beautiful. The grounds are looking really tremendous. And if you'd like to come and experience the peace and the solemnity of the Abbey here, just reach out to 610-601-8702, and I will be happy to set you up with a private retreat. And if you would like to support us, we'd be so grateful for that, whether it's through your prayers, whether it's through your financial support, or through sharing this content online. We are very, very grateful. You can visit daylesford.org/springhouse-media/support and make a contribution there. Thanks so much for being with us today, and we'll see you the next time on AbbeyCast.